Good evening, everyone. Carl Steinbeck here. Just want to talk this Friday night, 23rd of May, is an off day for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed. So I was planning on talking tonight and going over some other folks that are talking about the this case and how they think the prosecution is doing good. A few of them are saying that they're doing good, and I don't even want to waste my time doing that because obviously those kind of people probably just aren't paying much attention to the trial, and they get some media time. So I just want to do something that's more constructive. So wanted to jump in here and just go over something really briefly, and that's the glass evidence. And as you know, we sort of finished off last with this little chart that Ellen Jackson presented to the state's lab tech on all the glass analysis. And so I thought that could maybe be a little bit modified to just be a little bit more enhanced to explain and walk the dog on what this all means, because you have to know a bunch about the case, and even that, this doesn't like so totally quite explain it as a standalone slide. So as you see here, the 3-2 is the cup, 3-3 is bumper glass. There's 5 pieces of glass on the bumper, A through E. And then you have 7-12. Those are the 9 pieces covered by Sergeant Urich. And then we have 7-14 is the glass recovered by Proctor. So this is not, I guess this is showing you where it was at in terms of pictures and stuff, but check this out. So on the left-hand side of this, is I showing this properly? Okay, on the left-hand side, on the left side of the dotted line, so there's those 5 different pieces of glass that were able to withstand 60 miles an hour through horrendous cold, wind-whipping weather, and they supposedly were all remaining on there. And so you'd think if glass was going to be on there, it would have been really recent if it could even survive on there, which I submit to you, it's not possible for any amount of glass to stay on there, no matter how small or large the pieces are. So what we have here then is on the right side, these are the items recovered from 34 Fairview at various times spanning over weeks, right? So we have 2 main collectors of these items. On the left photo, we have fired trooper. They always say former trooper, but he's really more accurately known as fired trooper Proctor. And then on the right, we have Trooper Buchanan, Urich Buchanan. So keep this in mind. I think this helps break it down more. The one piece that supposedly was able to be matched in terms of the type of glass, like the refraction, they can't match it exactly. Like, hey, this came from the same item, but it's like a similar typing. It's more like a typing of it. So that's one that was brought by this fire trooper Proctor. And then if you look at the Sergeant Urich here, he found these 9 pieces of a cup, and so we have this cup here, and then you see this yellow in these little boxes. These are different yellow. They represent where the glass pieces are that fit the cup. But then there's another 3 that don't fit the cup. So where's all this extra glass coming from? So you got 3 extra pieces here with the question marks representing glass supposedly found at the scene. You got 4 other little pieces of glass here on the bumper. So how's this stuff even possibly, where these things coming from? It just doesn't make any sense. So what I have here is, this is like what the defense theory is going to be. So notice this little question mark with a plant there. So you have non-match physics-defying mystery glass. And then, so this linkage supposedly that Proctor's saying he found it there on the back bumper. Note, as I said, there's no physical match comparison performed, only comparative analysis, which means they have consistent refractive indicators. So anyway, this is like just one little sliver of item that supposedly similar to, but they can't do an actual match. But it's connected to this guy here, Proctor. So how much weight can you put in that? If you're on the jury, you can't put anything on there. So you don't have to prove that it was planted. You don't have to have direct videotape of him or anybody else doing any kind of planning. It's just highly suspicious, and that's what the defense can argue. Then you have over here was Trooper Buchanan. Where are these three items coming from? It doesn't make any sense. And where's who has glass like that laying around their front yard that they're able to find? So it's just very. I think the fact that you have extra glass at both locations looks like it did a bad job. Somebody did a bad job of doing some planning. And it could have been anybody planning this. I mean, it doesn't have to be these two folks here. It could be somebody else. There's motivation for other people. It could be somebody in the house. All right, Beach Bum, you're saying no way the glass sitting on the car going up a wrecker, wind blowing, and then backed off a wrecker. Yeah, even the elevation on that wrecker, we saw how high off the ground that Karen's GX 570 was. I mean, that thing, the bumper was probably like 6 feet off the ground or more, probably 7 feet off the ground. So, yeah, they can tell if it's the same type of glass, but they can't say it's the exact same coming from the exact same item. Yeah, well, this is the problem when because Karen didn't plead guilty, you're going to have an episode, and they knew right away she was arrested so fast that they had all this extra time. People had extra time if they wanted to dump it on Karen, whoever was a perpetrator. They had time to drive by there and drop stuff off. Could be anybody. Could be somebody in the house. They don't have to point the finger. I don't think they need the third party culprit defense. I think there's so much evidence now that the jury's going to be suspicious of Higgins. They should be. If they're not, so anyway, what do y'all think of this? I'm going to talk later, maybe on Sunday. I want to talk about again the opening of Hank Brennan, what he promised, and whether he's delivered anything more. So we can talk about that. I'm thinking we're going to do that Sunday. I did see that thing about the judge Canoni being awarded as Person of the Year by the Norfolk County Bar Association. I'm just like, that tells you right there how these people just don't get it. And then a sponsor to the overall association is Aperture. So those are the two things that are headliners of that event. It just seems so bizarre. You can't make that stuff up. So will we see Dr. Welcher show up? I think he probably will show up because he doesn't want to be known as a no-show, even though he's going to face a horrendous amount of embarrassment regarding this other so-called expert he had working for him, Burgess, and his disastrous testimony. I've heard that he actually has more certifications that were falsely on his CV or resume as well. Those had to be retracted, and they've entirely pulled his CV off their Aperture website. So that's pretty amazing. And as I understand, he has not been enrolled in courses there at University of Alabama, Birmingham since 2019. So I don't know if that's true. I was told that Mark Betterow, from a reliable source, said it was 2019 that he last attended class. So when you say you're currently attending. That is even a lie. And that's what I said before. I said, I don't believe this guy's been taking courses for years. It might be a decade. So if 2019 is the last time or 2050, so it's 6 years. So I was a couple years off, but Morrissey won Person of the Year in 2022. Wow. That is one bizarre place. Yeah, that's what we're hearing. It's widely reported. Yeah, they thought they could get a lot of traction after appearing on this case, having two experts appearing on this case of Karen Reed. So they decided to go with the local bar association and help sponsor that. I don't know why they'd want to get all that extra publicity. Suzanne, you're asking, do we know for sure the cup's from the waterfall? Why don't witnesses confirm the cup was from them there? Yeah, either there, because I know there was a Karen walked from one bar to the other, and we don't know if it's the same glass. Who knows? PJ, you're saying most damning in evidence planning is every single piece of taillight fits together like a puzzle. All found and circled. John O'Keefe in the area is found. Yeah. Well, I think if it was enough to smash a taillight, then it's enough to break bones in his arm and his body and leave bruises and all that. So it just doesn't add up. He would have he would have injuries more than just on the back of his head. He would have significant bodily injury, broken bones, massive broken bones. All right, let me see if you guys have any questions on this slide. Otherwise, I'll take the slide down. Yeah, Aperture did not sponsor the award, but Jen, you're asking, wouldn't Karen's DNA be on the glass too since it was her drink? I'm sure she held it at some point. Yeah, it would have been there, but I don't know what that. I guess unless they're saying this whole glass was planted there, I guess that's possible as well. I just don't trust any of this evidence. When you wait that many days to gather evidence, I think all of it's contaminated. It can't be sourced properly. I don't think there was any intent to kill him. I just think something went haywire on short notice, and there was panic set in. In metadata, what about the over 35 extra pieces of taillight found? Yeah, there's just too many pieces there. It just sounds hokey. Lucinda, if his arm broke the taillight, they would have found some in the casing. They found none. True. Jazz RN, what I think about the J or the swoop and laceration, John said. That's something there that I think is indicative of something more than just falling on the back of some grass. I think that's a real signature mark of something like the butt of a pistol. I know some of y'all think it might be like a cleat that was stomped on his head by a hardened athletic cleat, but I think that J could be like the bottom of a magazine. But it could be any number of things. I think it's something that doesn't explain the grass does not explain that. I mean, could it be a clip on the back of his head? I don't think so. A clip for a baseball cap would be on the outside, not inside to cause that kind of damage to the skin. So some of y'all also think it's a pistol whip. Stifler's mom, if you search pistol whip head injuries and search image, you'll see the same mark. Okay, well, let me go ahead and do that right now. Stand by. These aren't very good photos I'm finding here. Sam, you're saying something was all one piece because of the indentation, like a primer. I think it is something like that. I know that the doctor from Miami said that it was not a, it wasn't a blunt, sharper object like that because there was no depression, enough of a depression on the back of the skull. But if the bone gets bashed in and then the swelling could push it back out, I would say. I mean, he didn't explain that. And if he can't explain that, then yeah, I think it is possible. Julie, you're asking why they didn't I think ask about those pistol whip marks. I think because they didn't know the answer and they got enough out of him. And if they want to argue it and leave it as reasonable doubt, man, 962, if it wasn't for laceration on his face, I think it would just fell in his state. To me, that is huge. I do think the laceration is very much a big deal. And I think the one black swollen eye, black and blue swollen eye is a huge deal as well. Yep. The first one reported, they didn't have time to think about it. Within minutes of them coming, well, it should be within a minute of coming across John O'Keefe was Jen McCabe, and that was only brought out on the 911 tape. I don't even know if you could really hear that. They played such a rush bad copy of it. I don't recall a lot of details of that, so I would bring that out again. Daniel DeStefano, you're saying, when do I think the case state will end? Their case, as I understand from what Karen's telling them, the media there, that this is going to be one last witness, and that's the Aperture Welcher guy. JQ, you're saying, sounds like they don't even have a motive. The more I learn, the angrier I get. Patricia DeBrow, you're saying your husband said he fell in the garage floor and there was a fish hook he fell on top of. Like I say, any number of things. We could all come up with different ideas, but the prosecution has to show how it happened, and so far they haven't done that. Leslie B, yeah, I think Brennan is doing that, trying to throw out so much minutia, and there's not a clear, cogent, linear line of thought to how this supposedly went down. He's not even described how the body moved. Raynette, you're saying the size of the scratch mark appears if the dog leaped on John O'Keefe and knocked him down. The teeth marks are exact to a dog bite training sleeve. Yeah, what about the hole marks on that hoodie pullover he was wearing? Or I guess not a pullover, but a hoodie jacket. JM, you're saying what the possible meaning could prosecutions make out of two different sorts of glass? I mean, how many people have piece of glass on the back of their bumper anyway, sitting on the top there? And you got two different sources. It looks to me the most rational conclusion is somebody put it there after it got to Sallyport. Yeah, Suzanne, that's correct. On 9-1, she said they flipped him over. They, meaning more than one. Yeah, none of the taillight pieces had Officer John O'Keefe's DNA, flesh, etc. was on it. Yeah, that's critical if it's going to hit his elbow that hard. But then again, he's wearing a long sleeve jacket. Yes, Duster. They can call Dr. Stonebridge. She could be an expert for them. Harry's mom. I wish defense would ask Higgins and McKay why don't they spin on attorneys. Well, also the Alberts, them as well. I don't know why they haven't gone into that more. I've been really harping on that. That's a great thing to get the jury to realize that, hey, these guys are running, ducking and running from something. Koiko Mike Gaming. I can't wait to see the defense calls. Has to be Higgins Proctor or Higgins Albert Proctor, right? I would think so. Yeah, I think they're gonna call Proctor. They need to absolutely call the snowplow driver Lucky. They should also call the tow truck guy. I heard him on an interview, and he was really good. He said that Kieran's SUV didn't have any damage on it. Okay, Jazz RN, you've been a nurse for 28 years. The images from pistol whips are brutal, but there are some of those shapes in there, the exact swoop shape, but not some, not all, but on some. Yeah, Cassie Reynolds, you think it's a play we're watching, not an actual trial? It doesn't seem like a real trial, as bizarre as all the rulings are, and it's like a clown show and three-ring circus all in one. But yet it's absolutely serious as can be with Karen's life on the line here. Tad T, can the defense say something like, would you be okay if this investigation happened to you or a loved one during closing? Is that improper? Yeah, that's improper. You're not supposed to personalize the case to the jury members. That'd be objected to right away. Attorneys know that that's improper. Attorneys are not supposed to also vouch. They're like, this is the worst case of injustice I've ever seen, or this is the most guilty defendant I've ever prosecuted. Kevin from Nebraska Cornhusker land. I've heard so many stories of two drunk guys getting into a shoving match, and all of a sudden, one of them falls back and hits the head back of a stair step or countertop, dead instantly. Yeah, that's not as rare as you think it might be. I agree with you, Kevin. Moto, yeah, I hope the jury does understand defense has no burden of proof here. Yes, Ray Bach, no logical reason there was any glass still on the bumper. Harry's mom, yes, that's true. All the exculpatory evidence the judge hasn't allowed is criminal. Even just questions to show motive. I'm just telling you, so many cases. I would say the vast majority of every case I've won as a defense attorney has been motive. And the best way to show motive is impeachment. And if you're not allowed to impeach them with tough questioning, then you're absolutely denied a fair trial, which is guaranteed by the Constitution. And that's just been rampantly denied for Karen Reed's team in this case. Every day, it seems like every hour, multiple times. Stevie Howell, yes, that's a good question. Defense request should be there on having it come out of the plexiglass so the jury can look at it. I don't think they want the jury looking at the holes there, holding it up and looking in light and looking at the holes or the what looks to be dog bite mark holes or claw holes in there. Kelly's True North. You're saying so many unanswered questions. Why only blood on the front of his clothes? He was out there all night. If he's on his knocked out on his back, why is that all the blood on his shirt? So these are the kind of questions that Alessi could have asked that Dr. Wolf, but I think it's better off leaving common sense to answer a lot of those. So I don't think that's a bad move at all. Nancy 27, you're saying you definitely knew it was from a dog. Yeah, maybe the shadow box and the dog took it serious. Thought there was an actual fight just from roughhousing. My cat's named Karen. There's no physical way that the taillight would break into that many pieces by hitting a pedestrian. No way. I don't think it would have to be a harder blunt object like a hammer or something like that. CV Hall, you're asking, is the Commonwealth's theory that glass throwing broke the light? Well, it hasn't been said as of yet how the exact manner of death occurred, not even the opening argument. They didn't go to that level of detail. Opening statement. Beachman, we're hearing that the last one is Welcher from Arc Aperture. So the defense is going to have to call Procter and Higgins, and I think they will. I would if I was a defense attorney on a case like this in Texas. They might invoke. Procter could be charged with civil rights abuses in federal court. Karen, yeah, core temperature 80. That does seem like too warm to be for 5 hours and no frostbite. Yep. Yeah, Suzanne, Jen said on 911 call that they flipped him over, but in other places, Carrie was saying she's brushing snow off his face. No mention of flipping him. An inconsistency in Jen's story. Or is she just talking about a prior time? Was she talking about earlier that morning that they flip him over? Could that be a slip up like that? PG, yeah. Commonwealth hasn't called Higgins, Albert, or McCabe. I mean, every single witness they've got that's trying to establish some kind of level of indication of guilt by Karen Reed, there's just a lot of stuff there to draw reasonable doubts galore. Yeah, connected butt dials. What was that, a 38-second call at 5:07 in the morning? Jen McCabe calls her sister at the Albert house. Thanks, Jazz RN. Keep your money. Please give it to the Karen Reed defense team. Jam, your can't wait till the defense puts on their case for real evidence to come out. But keep in mind, the judge is going to try to block a lot of that with a lot of objections from Brennan. Beach bum, yeah, we agree. There's no way that glass would have stayed on there. PJ, you're asking if I noticed that they concealed the sleeve with the teeth punctures before they place it in plexiglass. They're trying to flatten it out, take out the depressions. I think that's a really sneaky move. I've never seen that before. I guarantee you that's why they did it. Sam, you're asking who I'd call if this is my case. Had a case like this in Texas, I would probably I'd probably start out with really the solid ARCA witnesses and let Brennan bring out his kind of beat down personality towards him and tick off the jury. And then that's going to be a great way to start out because absolutely Brennan freaks out with ARCA because he knows he's not in the same league as them. They can just totally shut down all of his snide remarks, his abusive type talking down to them. So they're going to be able to be world-class professionals as well as experts in their field. So I'd probably do that. And then probably Lucky and the tow truck driver. And then I'd probably call like Higgins, Proctor, McCabe, Albert. I'd call them after I've already built up this through more neutral witnesses. And then also bring in there's 3 cops that can talk about the violent propensities of Brian Albert. That's what I'm hearing anyway. So if they got those kind of witnesses, definitely finish it off with that. Sharon McCarthy. Yeah, I've been talking about the Sox too. You see him in those pictures, definitely, and while John's laying on that hospital bed, and they supposedly gave him to the family, but that doesn't make any sense why they would do that. We don't know for sure, but yeah, wouldn't that be something? They found Chloe's hair on there. Yeah, jury needs to meet him. I agree. Colin Proctor will do that. Winter's Garden Orchard. Well, she didn't allow it for Colin Albert, and she was sort of on the fence with it. She's doing a preliminary, assuming they can bring up enough evidence for Brian and also the two Brians, I should say, Higgins and Albert. But I don't think they need a third party defense, third party culprit defense. Why limit it to those being the only options of what happened? We don't know what happened. So we just know it wasn't Karen Reed's vehicle. Jules 507. Do you see her face when AJ asked her about it? That's a big deal, and that's why Nicole Albert should also be called, I think. Model 8, yeah, you agree it's a slip up where Jen tells what happened prior, which only the Alberts and the gang knew about. Beach Bum. How's evidence admitted if Proctor was lead investigator and he doesn't testify? Yeah, because they don't have any standards of chain of custody. The defense didn't object to that evidence coming in either. I think they're thinking, I guess, that the more confusing it is or how the evidence wasn't secured properly, that the more it looks like there's police cover up involved. That is true. Thank you. Leslie B. Yes, judges blocking so many questions that just are unbelievably the necessary probing questions you need to get to the truth. But she doesn't want the truth coming out, just like Brendan doesn't want the truth coming out. When there came, you're saying that priority things to you are that no one saw him in the yard when they drove by. 6+ people did not see him. His injuries do not sync up with the car damage, and car damage doesn't match. Those are all good ones. Jubilee, you're asking what I think of the neurosurgeon's testimony. It was just really bizarre to call somebody all the way up from Miami to basically add nothing to the case and be so limited in your questioning. And it was very disjointed by Brennan. And he just basically says that's the only way John O'Keefe could have gotten those injuries is to fall backward and hitting his head on the ground. And it didn't make any sense. And I think the jury should see that for what it is, which is nobody local wants to get involved in this case because nobody's going to say that John O'Keefe died from a fall. There's no evidence that this is being a vehicular impact. I mean, think about it. He didn't say this is a vehicle strike at all. I thought he would be saying that at least, bringing a guy up from Miami. Yeah, well, his socks were, apparently just disposed of, given to the family or something, I don't know. We never did hear what happened to those socks that John was wearing. Carolyn, you're saying Jen knew said she knew Nicole and Brian Albert were okay because she already knew and solved the case, but yet they kept meeting with family to figure out what happened. Yeah, think about the conversations too. They never once said in the text messages, "Can you believe what Karen Reed did?" Wow, none of that kind of talk happened. Just what we heard from Matt McCabe. Talk about how if Karen doesn't plead, it's going to be an episode, and that it's turned out to be. JM, can the defense get Brian Albert's destroyed phone in by calling only Higgins? They they can't use Higgins to testify as to Brian Albert's phone, so they need to call Brian Albert. I'm sure they'll call the two Bryans because yeah, the phone disposal right before the protective order came out. MLE. No, I think Brennan knows he's got a loser case. I mean, in his mind, if he does enough of objections and stuff doesn't come in, then maybe he can bamboozle a jury and trick them into getting a conviction. But from my appearances, he's not acting like he's a believer in this case. Theodore, yes, if she does get convicted, I think I'll be overturned on appeal. There's just too many terrible rulings by the court. She's not been granted a fair trial yet. Beach bum, you're saying John's clothes are on the floor in the ER, contaminated, and glass could have been dislodged. Yeah, they threw all of his clothes into one bag. I mean, none of this was processed as if it was a murder. Suzanne, you're saying the key will be for Judge can only give clear instructions. Jury last time she was completely confusing and confused the jury. Yeah, I don't know if she wants to give clear instructions though. Remember, Jackson objected to the verdict worksheet form that the jury goes through. So, not sure if not sure the judge is going to do much to change that. Yeah, Jim, you like starting off with Arca too. Yeah, it would come off right after Welcher. Yep. Higgins throwing his phone in a military base to get rid of it. Extremely suspicious. Caroline Austin, as a possible dog was killed, missing shoe. Dog had it, nose damaged. Dog's body in the duffel bag. Yeah, that could explain a lot. Dog could have been killed, could have been ushered out of there in another vehicle, could have been brought out back by the railroad tracks. This is all under scenarios the defense could be arguing. Sharma Lily, it's going to be quite humorous how Welcher is going to produce a way for this whole thing to have happened. Yeah, I don't know how this guy TC is going to explain all this with the tail light and all that. It's just doesn't make any sense. I don't think he's going to be credible at all. And that's their last hope for the prosecution. They don't have anybody else. Reasonable doubt through every single witness they've brought up so far. I don't think he can go 24 miles an hour in reverse with a 2021 Lexus like that. There's too many safety mechanisms. Mary Lisa Morrison, if God forbid there's a hung jury, does that mean the Commonwealth will hire another astronomically priced special prosecutor again? I'm not even going to talk about a retrial because I don't think it's going to be a mistrial in the second go around. I mean, from what we hear, everybody in that area knows how corrupt Norfolk, that whole area is, and you're going to have some holdouts for Karen Reed. If they just don't get this, they're not critical thinkers. Steve Howell, you saw a YouTube lawyer saying the neurosurgeon was awesome, really credible, impressive. Yeah, well, that guy probably has never really tried violent crime cases, maybe not a trial lawyer. You got to understand, most people talking about this case have not done violent crime. Like somebody who is experiencing this, Betterow is one. Harry's mom. No, I think they are looking stuff up. It's just human curiosity. Yeah, Sam, that's another point. None of them said, "Oh my gosh, can't believe John O'Keefe is gone. How dare Karen do this?" So, yeah, so there's even criminal law prosecutors, if they haven't done a lot of violent crime, or maybe they just don't do a lot of tough cases, they just don't really have the ability to predict stuff. And keep in mind, a lot of folks can get on TV. They've never done a criminal trial. They've never done a jury trial, civil or criminal. They don't even know much facts about the case, and yet they can get on stuff like court TV. So there's not really a screening mechanism for qualifications. Lily, if found innocent, will they reopen the case? Well, keep in mind, it's not being found innocent, is not guilty or guilty. So if she's found not guilty, the Commonwealth, they're still going to be stuck on their theory. So it's going to take the feds to get involved and do something. Absolutely, Mark Wunderlich. I believe they're tipped off about the phones. Yeah, both of them the day before, they get a copy of the order to preserve their phones. Beachbum, you think it's Tully that tipped them off? Cyport Lally. I see Shannon Burgess Aperture Education Profile has been updated. He no longer has a BS listed. How could anyone in the jury believe he has anything to say as an expert witness? I don't think a jury would find him credible. An expert of all things, that's one of your most important things you can bring to the table is your degrees. And if you have to lie about your degrees, what else you willing to lie about? Hey, there's Professor Phil Bell. Do you agree that there will be a huge public outcry to investigate the cover up if Karen Reed is found not guilty? I do think that there will be constant pressure on elected officials to do something, whether that can actually motivate them to do that, then that would mean that they have to concede that Karen Reed was a wrong target to go after. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to have to be the feds. But whether they do it or not is an unknown. The feds aren't going to move under pressure like that, but you never know. I hope they do. Yeah, John Smith. Where'd all that blood go? That's one of the things I've been saying over and over again. Where's all the blood? We've not heard a lot about that. We've not heard anything about that Fort Edge, really. Lucky's the one that talk about that. That could have come out in cross examination of other witnesses. That to me is a huge deal because that person was, according to the government's theory, if John O'Keefe was out there at 12:30 ish, and that vehicle got moved between 2:15 and 3:15, 3:30 in the morning, when there wasn't hardly any snow on the ground, well, that would mean that person had to have seen John laying there. So who was in that vehicle? We know multiple Alberts have a Ford Edge like that. PH. Yes, the lawyers would have been present when the jurors were questioned by Canoni. Judges never talk alone to jurors. There's always going to be a court reporter there and also both attorneys. Julie Jacobus. How come no one mentions Higgins' Jeep when he was picked up at the Alberts home? That could have been crossed on with Nagel, but they decided not to. For some reason. Maybe they didn't want to discredit them because they were so good on everything else, and then they can argue that they didn't see anything. And when Higgins says he was parked out front, then they can argue later that, see, Higgins really wasn't parked out front with his Jeep. Keep in mind, Jen also said that Jeep was parked down the street near the mailbox. Name, you're saying it looked like a lot of weight in the microdot video. A duffel bag looked like at least greater than 50 pounds. That sounds good to me. Purple One, you're saying we'll never get the whole story. It makes you mad. Well, I do think that there is a chance something always happened down the line or somebody gets in trouble for another crime and then they want to spill their guts. I've seen it happen before. We haven't seen it in the Adelson case where someone's willing to rat out each other from the family of the Adelsons, but these guys are tight like they're all family, the McCabe's and Alberts. But there might be somebody there that cracks if enough circumstances come their way. Jubilee, can I talk about what I've seen other prosecutors saying about how the case is progressing? There's only one prosecutor I've heard talk about it, but I think the others were, like I say, other attorneys that haven't done criminal law and violent crime cases. So I don't really want to give them a platform, and they don't really say why. I've heard them say some misspoken fact items that didn't come out at trial. They completely were making something up that never happened in the trial. So I would say we don't need to give them any attention. Noreen Gardner, hopefully the jury doesn't try to solve what happened, but understand it's weighing evidence against real doubt, not all doubt. That's why I don't understand why the defense tried to go with third-party culprit. Why try to have burden shifting, and you got to come up with enough evidence to try to point the finger and get some instruction? Because what if the jurors don't think it was Higgins, or what if they don't think it was Brian Albert? What if they think it's something else happened? Don't narrow the window. On what else may have happened. Hold on a second here. Yeah, without naming folks, just keep in mind, unless they've actually say they've tried cases, then they don't have the kind of experience to criminal cases, that is, then I would not they're not speaking from experience, they're just speaking what they are believing based on what they know about the law generally, or just watching TV or YouTube on criminal cases. Rainette, sure, he definitely searched mentality. That'd be something I would think a few of them would be if they don't know what that word means. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't ask the brain surgeon how much he was charging. He couldn't say he blamed it on his staff. They would have dealt with him directly. I'm sure he may be among us now. The butt dial trial. Yeah, well, guess what? These younger jurors, they're not going to believe these butt dials. Yeah, that's true. JSRN. Higgins never answered Kieran's text saying that John O'Keefe was dead. He was running to get his lawyer. Not there yet. Neurosurgeon was credible. Nothing of significance was added to the cause of injury. He said that's the only way it could have happened. So I think he wasn't even that credible. I think he wanted to be. I think to have such a busy schedule and then to be able to leave to come up and fly a multi-connection flight to Boston, you got to pay that guy a lot of money. Joe running. Do I think Brennan brought in the brain surgeon as he just wanted his own doctor? I think there's some psychology to that. Yes, I do. Tete, did they go to the funeral? I think there was like maybe two different things, like a initial viewing, then maybe a service later or something. I can't recall now who didn't go, but there are some folks that didn't go that were in the house, as I understand. Francis Capello, yes, and this. Well, you can't even call it an investigation. That doesn't do the term justice. But yeah, that does create reasonable doubt. CV Howell, I think about Burgess every day. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. That's true. We've been talking about it here as well. We've been looking up stuff on Welcher too to see when he got his degree. His CV doesn't say any dates. If you go to Aperture website right now, you'll see his CV doesn't have any dates that he got his PhD and his master's and his bachelor's, which is really strange. Why you wouldn't put the dates in? You normally, I think that's a sign somebody doesn't want to show how old they are. Yeah, so that's what we're hearing today is that Burgess did not tell the truth about currently pursuing. It's not current if it's 6 years old. I'll allow it. On one hand, I can see him wanting like to be so much have an excuse not to show up because there's really not anything out there we've seen on YouTube about him testifying, and now this is the first time he's going to be on YouTube testifying, and it's going to be forever there. So this could really hurt his business. Plus, he's going against the ARCA guys, so good luck with that. Nikki Murray, you're saying the Canton PD video doesn't show Higgins driving. It shows him driving the Jeep over to his truck. The video's edited. Higgins drove the truck. Yeah, there's been talk about Higgins going to get the Jeep from, I guess, his house or something. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is to that. Yep, JMS. That's a huge reasonable doubt issue, that Ford Edge. And it's bad enough that a Ford Edge shows up that would have seen him, but then the Ford Edge is also moved when Lucky comes by, and he notices it's not there, and then it's there. Yeah, Angie's Wave, the Ford Edge, the discarding of phones, butt dials and texts, selling a house, rehoming dog, no socks. Karen Reed hitting John O'Keefe's car in the driveway there at One Meadows, and all the lying on the witness stand. It's on and on. Yep, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Remember that text about the homeowner? There, some of the buddies of Proctor saying, "Is a homeowner going to catch it?" And Proctor's answer was, "No, he's a Boston cop." In other words, yeah, we would have gone after the homeowner, but because the Boston cop, he gets a free pass. Professor Phil Bell, would you agree that all luxury cars will self brake if the driver was backing up with speed towards a certain collision? I'm pretty sure that GX 570 would have a collision avoidance system. So let me see if I can find something here. 2021 Lexus GX 570 safety features. So thanks for asking that question. I'm pulling this up now here. Let's see. Let me remove this one. Oh, sorry, I got to put it here. Here's what I came up on a quick Google search. Check this out. It's the 2021 Lexus LX. Okay, that's an LX. This is a GX 570. I think they mean GX because there is no such thing, I believe, as an LX 570. But it does include pre-collision system with pedestrian detection, rear cross traffic alert. So would that be like automatic braking as well? Yeah, so right here, pre-collision system. This system can alert drivers. All right. It says pedestrian system uses sensors to check pedestrians in the front of the vehicle. So apparently there may not be any in the back. But there's some kind of speed safety mechanism that I've heard before that it can slow the vehicle down, especially in reverse if you're going too fast in reverse. I guess I typed in LX. Let me check here with GX. Has a drowsiness detector. So anyway, that's it right there. I guess I saw somebody in the chat here saying they had a 2022 GX. If you're in the snow and you want to go 24 miles an hour, I'd be surprised if you could do that. Yeah, and they found the John on top of snow. They never said it was green grass underneath him. If he's there laying there 5.5 hours, his body heat alone to make sure that any snow underneath him is melted. Jam, if you agree the Ford Edge is a big deal, eyewitness said that Karen Reed was in the car alone. John O'Keefe's not in the car. That is a big deal. Yes, sir. Cat's pajamas. Tully's name keeps popping up as much as Proctor's. Is he on the defense witness list? I am. I think he would be. I don't recall off the top of my head. I don't think they need to call him though. G35 girl. Where's all the biological matter on the shards of plastic taillight pieces that cause those lacerations on his arm not present? Then the taillight didn't cause those injuries. Yeah, I didn't. There's no way those are from a plastic taillights. G-Lander, thoughts on Ford Edge being used to move the body from the house to yard. That'd have been a good way to dump off the body and not have as many, number one, foot tracks going through the yard, but also it provides cover for people driving by. And then that keep in mind that which they should have tested that Ford Edge for any kind of biological evidence left behind there. What if we would have found John O'Keefe's DNA in that trunk, for example, or in the back seat? That'd have blown the whole case wide open right there. Stevie Hall, you think it'll come out in time? There'll be a divorce, something, and it will come out. Yeah, that can put a lot of pressure on folks. You're right. Yeah, 24 mile an hour. Plus, going that fast to be able to get up that speed, you need a lot longer distance to be able to get up to that speed. And then you would have crashed into the mailbox, into the supposed Jeep that was there, or whatever Higgins was driving, if he was driving that pickup. So, hey, that reminds me of something I want to show y'all. Hold on a second. Check this out here.
Home in Canton is that of a Boston police officer. Officer John O'Keefe, who was off duty, was found dead on Fairview Road yesterday morning in front of a friend's
Look at that. Does that look similar to the vehicle out there at
house? State police were at the scene
that
last
Dodge
night
Ram
investigating this.
four-door with
At
a
this point, it's not
topper
clear
on it? We
how
call
he
it a
died.
topper, that back thing over the cab. I don't remember seeing those vertical poles. See those kind of vertical, 3 vertical frames, so you could put something above the topper for load-bearing purposes. They have that frame.
It's not clear how he died. An autopsy is set for
So
tomorrow. O'Keefe was a 16-year veteran of the Boston Police Department.
Vehicle,
The department,
but don't know. Don't know if that's the same vehicle or not. Yeah, I haven't done any coverage on Morrissey's public address statement. Maybe I'll do that here in the coming days. Brittany, you're saying that in the tow truck vehicles or tires are spinning fast. Could the key cycle they are using claim the speed? It could be. I just don't know. I just don't trust a lot of this electronic stuff with cars. I've seen too many electronic stuff go haywire on cars, electronic systems and components. Nancy 27. Speaking of Adelson's, have you seen the updates? Yeah, I know that they are asked for a new judge. Charlie's appeal says jury was talking about it to each other and he was guilty from the beginning and judge knew. I've not looked over all the initial appeal. They call it like an initial appeal, which is like the weirdest thing. I've never seen like an initial appeal and there was no suspense date on it, no filing deadline. So that whole process down there for appeal in Florida is just really bizarre. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's ever been a murder case where the lead prosecution detective is not called by the prosecutor, but is called by the defense. This has got to be the first. Suzanne, yeah. So Karen did back up on the road. So John was in the road and then ended up on the lawn. How does that make any sense? How do you get like 12 to 15 feet off the curb? Yeah, here's mine. Chloe, the dog, was not in the house at 6:04 a.m. on the 29th. So where was that dog? That is a huge thing, the dog. Yeah, so I think the Ford Edge, the dog missing, and you add up all the strange behavior of the McAlberts, as people refer to both the McCabe's and the Alberts collectively. Sharon Boyle, my background is criminal defense. No benefit to call Karen Reed to give evidence. Yeah, that's what in this case, Karen Reed would not testify because the prosecution has not proven their case beyond reasonable doubt. And if the prosecution hasn't proven their case, you don't put your client on the stand. That's pretty much a bottom line no brainer. That's your client's choice. In America, the defendant has the right to remain silent or testify if they want to testify. That's ultimately their choice. But most all smart clients rely on their lawyer on whether they should testify or not. I think Karen would like to testify, but they've got enough of her different statements out there, and it's not necessary. It'd be a high risk maneuver to ever testify. It's not worth it because you can get tripped up on something innocently, and a jury member could think that there's something amiss and think that you're guilty for that. So, young black economist is like thinking a poorly trained computer science Whiffen knows anything about statistics. I mean, Whiffen, what kind of education does he have in his field? He's a former cop that becomes some kind of no super knowledgeable expert on all this digital type of stuff. How do you get that kind of knowledge? And then he's trying to sell some of his product on the witness stand. And then he's doing tests in his house and his wherever he lives, his flat or house, whatever it is. So many weird things in this case. Barrett Laurie, how much of the Albert's concrete basement flooring can the defense get into? In your opinion, John fell backwards there. Well, it all depends on what kind of defense that they're going to allow Karen Reed's team to provide, because Brennan's going to try to object and the judge will probably sustain most of it. I think they should try to bring that out. Mary Lisa Morrison, rumor has it Higgins never spoke to Alberts after that fateful evening. That's what I'm hearing as well. Is it possible he was given immunity by the feds? Higgins told them everything that really did happen. They're not going to give him immunity because he could be a suspect for murder. So they're not going to give somebody immunity like that. They could maybe cut a deal or something if he wanted to come clean. They're not going to give him full immunity like we saw with Katie McBanois in the Adelson murder case. All right, I'm way behind here on questions. Let me jump ahead. Lisa Lou 7, doesn't the testimony of the four eyewitnesses that Higgins' Jeep was front of the mailbox refute the idea that Karen could have backed up to hit John? Yeah, hit John and not hit that Jeep. I think so. Don't know about his wallet and badge. To Lisa, do I think the ARCA payment issue equates to the Aperture education issue in terms of how the judge should have reacted? Gasping at any of the day versus no reaction. It was all grandstanding by Brennan and the judge. The ARCA payment issue wasn't anything that was significant because the judge never had any findings. She never made any conclusions and then had a final decision. So a judge would have to make findings and then come up with a conclusion. There was no findings. She just made a declaration saying that they misrepresented things to the court. And they really had limited conversations with him because they were not released by Department of Justice to have a full discussion with them. And the payment that they paid for was after the fact. So that's a huge deal, I think, to have them understand they were paid by the FBI to do all these tests initially. Now, these subsequent testing, the FBI, I don't think would have paid for that, but to know they initially came to all their conclusions without even knowing who Karen Reed is, I think that's a huge thing to bring out. Name, you're saying, why does the judge keep smiling? It's creepy. Yeah. You're thinking the jury fixes in? I hope not. It's a big falsity to make it look like Arca's integrity is compromised because they had a payment from the defense after they testified that was not discussed beforehand. Yeah, Phoebe Beach, it's legal to park on the street when that's being plowed. Someone took a chance they could conceal. Sheldon Green, it's a pre-collision system that sends a warning before a collision. Larry Hudson, the jury can't figure this out just like the rest of us doubt the rule of the day. Well, it's reasonable doubt. If it's reasonable doubt, they cannot convict. Yes, Julian Nielsen, there would be a backup cam in the Lexus. Tex mess. You thought they didn't want liability happening in their house. Sheldon Green, the Lexus is equipped with a PCS and EDR system that detects collisions and pedestrians. Yeah, but is it only to the front? Pedestrians in the front of the vehicle? You guys are saying she had the LX and not the GX? I think it was a GX. Anyway, they're virtually identical. Sheldon Green, you're saying it's a 360 system that detects pedestrians and cars, the PCS and EDR, the event data recording system. The car would send a warning to the data recording. Yeah, I don't know. Why didn't that come out then with this Burgess guy? I know the 570 is their biggest engine. It's their 5.7 liter. T-Shaw 25 you could do. Some people saying that it cannot go that fast, especially on slick pavement with snow on there. Yep, I guess it is an LX. Sorry. Thank you. Yep. Not a lot of. We haven't heard anything about the blood, right? Where's all the blood? Brittany, you think that tires are spinning fast? You think it's the key cycle they're using? It could be. Yep. It's an LX. Thank you. I just got confirmation. G35 girl, head, scalp, and face wounds, bleed like crazy. Yeah, there was a brother of Brian Alberts also had one. I think one other family member had one as well. Moto 88 jury will be impressed by ARCA and disgusted by Proctor, just like all reasonable people are. Strong impressions will be made and they'll have an impact. Sheldon Green, you really think they got a Faraday bag to move John's phone out front so they didn't detect anything? No DNA on the tail light. Also, polycarbonate wouldn't cut through his clothing, causing linear cuts. I totally believe all that. Good comment. I'll leave that up there longer. Maureen Gardner, that's true. If only Lucky had reported the Ford Edge, he didn't want the Alberts to get fined. But then again, cops would have shown up to what, move it or something? Or would they just call the tow truck? Either way, hopefully that would have made a difference. If he was out there at that time, though, you're saying the jury should be allowed to try to reverse a Lexus 570. Yeah, that'd be very interesting, but they're not going to allow that. Yeah, for Dr. Welcher, keep in mind they don't even know where John's body was found. They don't know where exactly the Lexus was at. All this is just guesswork. The body was moved. They don't know exactly where the body was laying. All these debris pieces laying. So they're going to reconstruct this with no crime scene CSI folks there at all. Who doesn't call their CSI folks, which they call CSS, to a site that somebody died, and supposedly Karen saying, I hit him. Lou and Doom, you're saying could be Higgins' truck. What time was that in the corner of the broadcast? Let me go back here.
Released a statement on the death of Officer O'Keefe, which reads in part. O'Keefe, who was off duty, was found dead on Fairview Road yesterday morning in front of a friend's house.
So, John, it's got to be, probably look at all that mound of snow there right now that wasn't there before. So John's body would have been laying right sort of on top where that mound of snow is. So soon after they took John to the hospital, who came in there and moved all that snow? You can see there between this guy standing there and where the Ram pickup is, the 4-door pickup, that's sort of more smooth. And then there's this big, it's like they scoop snow out of the way to get to something here where the more the grass would be. So none of this makes any sense. That's how you treat a crime scene? All that is fresh moved snow, keep in mind. Those of you that don't live in a snowy area. So look in front of this police car or even over the top of the hood. You see it's all, the snow is flat there. Even in front of this car here for a little ways, it's pretty much flat. You can see there's not a berm.
Duty was found dead on
So I don't see
Fairview
it.
Road yesterday morning in front of a friend's house. State police were at the scene last night investigating this. At this point,
And that vehicle's a darker Ram pickup. So I don't recall what the one on at the parking lot there at the police station was. Ashley IMO, they parked the Ford Edge at the flagpole because they knew Lucky would be making another plow down 34, and just not exactly when. So they put the edge to block him. They had to be ready at moment's notice in case. Karen Reed started looking for John, so they couldn't take a chance being caught by Lucky when they dumped him, so blocked the street. So when Karen Reed calls Jen and the Jen, her sister, at 508 go time. I'm not aware Arca has a YouTube channel. That's interesting. Yep, Rena, 1236, Karen's Best Alibi. That's the title of one of the live streams I did. Was that the Karen Reed has an alibi? BX David, how long do you think it'll be for Aperture Fires expert Shannon? I think they'll wait till the trial's over. Then I don't think you'll see them on their website anymore. They're just wanting to not make this be such a highlight of their business entity. So that's why they want to keep it semi hidden, because they still have him listed, but they don't have any of his credentials listed as in terms of the CV and his LinkedIn profile. Mary Lisa, you think if there's a hung jury, Morrissey will be defeated in the upcoming 2026 election? New ADO will drop Cincinnati. Well, I would hope so, but who knows? That place is really just one insane place. If you have this local bar association giving this judge Person of the Year award, golly, Person of the Year for doing what? Norman Corey doesn't make any sense because it's nonsensical. That is true. Lycée, not me. The daughter slipped the dog out. A lot of people think that. All right, I'm going to do this. We're getting here past midnight Central Time here. Yep, neighbors never being interviewed. Like a ring cams. Yes, there was no investigation. Ron L., what about John O'Keefe reporting to the Canton Police Department about drug dealing, supposedly that was involving one of the Alberts? Don't have confirmation on that. Thursday's Navigator. Yeah, the whiff and refrigerator test. Yes, PJ, I think it will all backfire in the end. Ultimately, Karen will be acquitted. Yes, and Higgins' trip to the CPD was definitely proven his phone was to his face. He wasn't butt dialing. I agree with that. Yes, Department of Justice did hire ARCA, and that's what's not going to come out in the jury, which is an absolute outrage to me. Such an unfair thing to do to the defense. TS Jackson 72, do you not believe that if the Lexus hit John O'Keefe hard enough to shatter a taillight, it would have dislocated his shoulder, elbow at the very least? It's ludicrous to say he had scratches. I agree with you 100%. I think the jury's going to get it and will get it and will come back not guilty. Yeah, rehomed the Ford Edge. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Y'all have a great rest of the weekend. I do plan on coming back on Sunday night, and we'll go from there. So y'all be safe. Take care. Have a good night.